Hi, Gilles.
Oh, hi.
I found this on the internet the other day. I thought you might be interested. Assemblage, from French agencement, is a post-humanist philosophical approach that studies the ontological diversity of agency, which means redistributing the capacity to act from an individual to a socio-material network of people, things, and narratives.
I don't see what this should have to do with me.
Well, you are always quoted in this context alongside with authors like Manuel de Landa, Bruno Latour, Jane Bennett.
Honestly, that sounds like a bad joke to me. Like a cheap play on words that I'm not responsible for. From agencement to agency.
That seems to be the idea. But maybe you just say what it is about from your point of view.
What is an assemblage? It's a multiplicity which is made up of many heterogeneous terms and which establishes liaisons, relations between them, across ages, sexes, and reigns, different natures. Thus, the assemblage's only unity is that of co-functioning. It is a symbiosis, a sympathy. It is never filiations which are important, but alliances, alloys. These are not successions, lines of descent, but contagions, epidemics, the wind.
Sounds very nice. Maybe also a bit threatening. I'm thinking of the coronavirus here, but still remains very abstract.
Here's an example. Take an assemblage of the type man, animal, manufactured object. A man, horse, stirrup. Technologists have explained that the stirrup made possible a new military unity in giving the knight lateral stability. The lance could be tucked in under one arm. It benefits from all the horse's speeds, acts as a point which is immobile itself, but propelled by the gallop. The stirrup replaced the energy of man by the power of the animal. Now, this is a new man-animal symbiosis, a new assemblage of war, defined by its degree of power or freedom, its affects, its circulation of affects, what is said of body is capable of.
Okay, I can understand that. But what does that have to do with agency?
I'm not sure. Maybe because humans, animals, and technology interact here in a certain way. Anyway, when I introduced the term with Felix, it was about something rather different.
About what?
The unconscious, the complexes or formations of the unconscious, and how they are connected with the social field. To make this clear, we initially spoke of machines, of desiring machines above all, but also of paranoia machines or of bachelor machines.
That was in Anti-Oedipus at the very beginning of your collaboration with Felix. But at the latest, in A Thousand Plateaus, you replaced the concept of the desiring machine with that of the assemblage. And at the same time, the meaning of this term also changed away from the machine aspect, away from technology, towards language, towards Chelmslev, and so.
Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Already in Anti-Oedipus, we spoke of assemblages or agencement, in particular of machinic assemblages.
Really, no?
Sure, feel free to check it out, especially in the final part of Anti-Oedipus when we talk about the machines in molecular biology.
Oh, that. But I never understood those passages.
Look, the details are not that important. What is at issue there is something like the emergence of order out of chaos. In order for life to be life, it has to assemble or agencer itself in certain forms. For example, DNA in the form of a double helix.
But you don't know anything about that. You're not a molecular biologist.
True, but we didn't want to leave biology out of our theory of the unconscious. So we were interested in a kind of molecular unconscious. That is, the question of how its components, the fragments and the partial objects, arrange themselves in order to be able to function, or rather, to co-function.
In order to form a subject, you mean?
Exactly. And what we had observed, or what we had found out in the discussion with analysts like Lacan and Leclerc, but also Melanie Klein and Donald Winnicott, is that for the formation of the unconscious, not only entire persons are important, like mother and father, but complex assemblages which are populated by partial subjects and partial objects, actual multiplicities which are made of many heterogeneous terms and which establish liaisons, relations between them.
I see. So ultimately, it's the subject who makes these connections, depending on its physical condition, its personal experiences, and its social environment. But wait a minute, that's quite different from the assemblage theory that's so popular today, isn't it?
Yeah. However, Felix and I did not stop at the idea of the machine and the machinic assemblage. You've already seen that in the stirrup example. In our Kafka book, we then continue to extend the notion of the desiring machine. For example, to the question of how an adult's utterances are related to the use he or she makes of technical machines. Kafka and the parlograph, for example, Kafka and the cinema, and so on and so forth.
And then in A Thousand Plateaus, you went even further and combined the theory of assemblages with linguistics and geology.
Yes, but I assure you at the same time that it was never our intention to turn this concept into a weird ontology of the social. What kind of society is this in which you can no longer recognize who is responsible for which actions, or where the components of the assemblage come from, how the connections between them are established and which power relations go along with it?
Well, but who is responsible for your actions?
I'm not sure what you mean.